burlesque Bach herself would write in her memoirs, "There is no summer resort in China to rival Guling." Old photographs, film footage and written records tell us that the foreign children enjoyed a carefree existence, whether in the scorching summer or in the freezing winter.
Amazing. To know that my great-grandfather lived here so many years ago.
Rogan is a 15-year-old from America. In 2009, he visited China for the second time. As on his previous visit, he chose Guling in LUSHAN as his destination. Rogan loves the picturesque scenery of Mount Lu, and he's fascinated by the places of cultural interest there. But more than that, he was coming in search of stories about his parents and grandparents and the people they knew.
哎，老奶奶你好，这是那个罗根，他的老爷爷、老外公曾经住在这儿，我们可以进去看看吗？阿尔古德是原来古里美国学校的校长，他原来就住在这个房子里，是他建的房子。
Allgood, the headmaster of Guling American School, was Rogan's great-grandfather. As a boy, Rogan had often heard stories about LUSHAN and the people who lived there. But there was something different about what he and other foreigners were told about Guling. Unlike the stories popular among the people born and bred on LUSHAN, they always began with a man named Edward Selby Little. It was Edward Selby Little who came up with the idea of building villas in Guling. It's 1895 and a plot of land has a new owner. The site is known as Plot 86A at Donggu in Changchun, LUSHAN. Within 2 years, a brand new stone villa will have appeared on the site. The villa was bought by an American missionary from Virginia called Absalom Seidenstricker. His Chinese name was Sai Jiaoxiang. It's a name that's remembered chiefly because of his famous daughter. She was just a little girl when she arrived among the strange world of rocks and stone houses. She examined her new surroundings with great interest and fell instantly in love with the place. The stone villa and the surrounding mountainous environment where she and her family came to escape the summer heat would have a profound influence on her life. In June each year, when the seedlings are removed from the dry to the paddy fields, it's time to visit Guling at LUSHAN. These words would later be written by that little girl. In describing where she lived, she said, There's a spring not far from my home. The water pours down the mountain like silk fabric. As an adult, she recorded her memories of her life in China. Many of those memories were associated with Guling. Like her father, she had a Chinese name, Sai Zhenju.
中国的小辫子，你看看中国的小辫子漂亮吧，美吧？
The girl lived in China until she was 18. Her experiences in China had a great impact on the cultivation of her values and philosophy. In her diary, she recorded that she never thought of herself as a foreigner. That little girl would become the famous Pearl S. Buck. Among the beautiful green peaks of LUSHAN, she learned about China. Later in life, she would cherish wonderful memories of her life there.
他们的前辈带着他们的孩子来到了庐山，当时可能就是为了躲避各种疾病和一些战乱、一些非常混乱的局面吧，来到庐山这样一个安静清新的一个地方。那么他们的孩子呢，在这儿呢，主要是在这儿读书。当时的年龄呢，就是应该说普遍都在15岁以下。他们所记忆中的庐山就是清澈的山泉，青翠的山，那个宝塔、蝴蝶、小溪，那个岩石，甚至还包含蛇、小花等等等等这样的，给他们留下很深刻的印象。
It was the early 20th century. Amid the chaotic situation in China and the world at large, Guling in LUSHAN was a haven of peace. Foreigners who recalled living there at the time described Guling as somewhere refreshing, free, quiet, and filled with joy. Every rock, every tree, every blade of grass and every drop of water was the incarnation of life. Pearl S. Buck herself would write in her memoirs, "There is no summer resort in China to rival Guling." When the villas were built at Guling, an effort was made to ensure that they blended with the natural landscape. Each of the villas was individually designed by foreign architects, brought in specially by Edward Selby Little. In 1922, on Little's advice, the Guling Council published a book called History of LUSHAN. The book, by comparing Guling old and new, was, in essence, a record of Little's efforts to develop the area. The illustrations reveal the changes that took place there over the years. Edward Selby Little came from Britain, the country where in the 18th century the Industrial Revolution had begun. The Industrial Revolution radically altered the way people lived, but as it developed, so it created more problems. Populations began to grow, and the environment began to be polluted. As a result, people began to ponder many things, among them where they might find a paradise to live in. In 1898, utopian socialist Ebenezer Howard set out to answer this question in Garden Cities of Tomorrow. The book describes an ideal world in which urban and rural elements were both treated as indispensable for survival, but were organically combined. And yet in 1895, 3 years before the book's publication, Edward Selby Little and his architects were already making plans for building villas at Guling in accordance with a similar philosophy.
我觉得呢，可能李德利是在某种程度上，也受到霍华德的一些田园城市啊、花园城市思想的一些影响，是吧？是否他完全根据霍华德的这个规划理念去编制的庐山的孤岭的规划？现在我还没有拿到这方面的一些印证，但是我觉得他们有些，比如说，城市要接近自然，是吧？人和自然要有机的融合，是吧？那么城市能不能把自然的这些风光能够引入这个居住环境？我觉得这些思想呢，或者说这些理念呢，应该说也是不谋而合了。
Along the banks of the Changchong River, there are paved stone paths leading to private houses. The low walls of these villas offer a fine view of the river and the mountain slopes. Here, the natural water system and the villas on the mountain slopes combine to form an harmonious landscape. In the centre of the villa area is a natural park. This is Lindsay Park, and in both winter and summer it attracts visitors with its enchanting beauty. Howard's dream, which he revealed in Garden Cities of Tomorrow, was realised at Guling. Here, man and nature were organically integrated, with results that actually went beyond Howard's dream.
在田园城市设想里边，城市是一个同心圆的，它的道路都是从中央向周围辐射的这种欧洲的城市的传统的做法，但是在庐山不是，庐山采取了这个一个自然式的这个山林布局和这个网格式的道路，这个严谨的城市的这个方块式的这个布局，这个是相结合起来的。这个在当时是非常先进的，它突破了这个田园城市的这种传统的做法，这是一个非常大的革新和进步。
For people yearning for a haven far from the noise of a city, Guling was perfect. Though not a city, the living environment was comfortable enough. Guling had not only villas and gardens, but also churches, schools, hospitals, and sports grounds. No wonder many of those who came to the place resolved never to leave. Old photographs, film footage and written records tell us that the foreign children enjoyed a carefree existence, whether in the scorching summer or in the freezing winter. The children in the photographs all attended the school which Rogan was looking for. Even after so many years, the buildings were little changed, although the old school where Rogan's great-grandfather had been the headmaster had been converted into a hotel. Even so, Rogan hoped to find something there relating to the people of the past.
Amazing. To know that my great-grandfather lived here so many years ago and worked here. My grandmother and her sisters running around here.
Rogan was shown a stone tablet and was told stories he had never heard before. Allgood, his great-grandfather, was still remembered locally. During the War of Resistance against the Japanese, he had sheltered Chinese refugees in his classrooms. In the face of the common enemy, Rogan's great-grandfather had stood shoulder to shoulder with his Chinese neighbors and friends. He had also collected many of the plant samples that are now housed at LUSHAN's Botanical Garden. In the decades before this had happened, most foreigners had viewed Chinese people as nothing more than physical labourers. In fact, they probably never gave a thought to the fact that without Chinese people, their lives of comfort in Guling would be very different. The stone for building their villas, the furniture, their daily necessities, even they themselves, everything had to be carried from the foot of the mountain. The creation of this pleasant environment was founded on the hard toil of the Chinese workers. The stonemasons of LUSHAN played a key role in building the villas. The planners insisted that the beautiful environment should be protected in the area where the villas were to be built. This meant that the stone needed for the villas had to be quarried on far-away mountains. It's estimated that a single villa required 800 tons of stone. It was a magnificent concept, but only the most primitive means of transport were available in that era.
像庐山这个石路啊、石台阶啊、石围墙啊，到处所见的都是石头的这些建成的东西，一件一件都是施工做出来的这种艺术品。而美国的著名建筑师赖特对中国的施工艺术曾经给他非常高的评价。他说，应当像中国的施工那样欣赏石头那种如画般的美。他们呢，潜心研究石头的这种本身的这种纹理的这种艺术，好像从中就看到了整个世界，让石头唱自己的歌，说自己的话。
The blueprints for the villas were provided by the villa owners themselves and the architects, but it was the Chinese workers who turned the blueprints into buildings. Despite the European-style designs, the villas retained some uniquely Chinese architectural features. Though outwardly looking Western in style, the villas, on closer inspection, appear quite Chinese.
庐山的别墅呢，是号称庐山人文景观里面非常有特点的啊，或者说无论从规模来说，还是从它的形制、风格、样式，还有它的一些做法，可能我觉得在中国近代啊，和其他一些地方相比啊，都是空前的，基本上是反映了这个10多个国家的。啊，他们大体上是19世纪末那个时候，以西方国家为主的一些建筑的风格和样式。那么，当然这些风格和样式到了我们中国以后啊，有的已经本土化了，或者说融入了中国的乡土建筑的一些要素。那么但是呢，我觉得还是体现了我们这种建筑的样式的多样化。
The Anglican Cathedral of St. John, built in 1910 using more than 1,000 tons of stone, is typical of the architecture of Guilin. The stones used to build the walls were not processed, so they have a rough, natural look. And on the whole, they harmonize so well with the surroundings that they give the impression that the building grew out of the mountain slopes. The foreign-style villas in their Chinese environment are quite conspicuous. They turned Guilin into a showcase of international villas, co-sponsored, it could be said, by the Chinese stonemasons. Absalom Seidenstricker, whenever he came here to escape the summer heat, would often preach at the cathedral. As a missionary, he was kindly and honest. He lived by the principles of treating others honestly, loving them as one did oneself, and helping the needy and those in danger. He was sincere in his efforts to get closer to the Chinese. Unfortunately, however, this sometimes proved very difficult. China, at the time, was being threatened by foreign powers. Most Chinese people had mixed feelings towards foreigners: respectful and hostile, reverent and hating. But Absalom Seidenstricker was ignorant of this. From the pulpit in the cathedral, when he preached to the Chinese, he failed to recognize that an invisible wall of stone separated him from them. The simple fact was, his Chinese congregation had no interest in his sermons about the promised land. What concerned them was having enough food and clothing. The stones used to build the villas at Guilin were a record of life in China at the time. The modern writer Yao Xuexue said, "Stones are the flesh and blood of the mountains. When they were taken away from LUSHAN, the mountain felt pain." Stones thus removed from the mountain were used to build villas of poetic styles. When you tap the stone walls with your hand, you hear no echo. Instead, you feel a cold pain, a pain that is felt in the heart. When I was asked, what do the Chinese look like, I found it hard to answer. Why? The Chinese are not like this or that. They're human individuals themselves. When I mention them, I'm mentioning people who are just like my kith and kin. I am really very, very close to them. This comes from a diary entry by Pearl S. Buck in 1933. Compared to her father, she was obviously more successful in blending in with the Chinese.
赛珍珠呢，他自己虽然是出生在这个传教士的家庭，但是他没有像父亲那样对上帝、对宗教有那种狂热。他从小呢是接触的中国最底层的普通百姓，被中国老百姓的那种淳朴善良所感染。他对中国人的那种爱完全是出于一种人性的爱。他觉得中国人善良、勤劳、勇敢，他是这样一种认识的 基础上去爱中国、爱中国人的。
Perlbach returned to LUSHAN in 1922. She had decided to write a book based on her own experiences in China and those of her parents. In his famous LUSHAN Declaration, Chiang said, "Once war begins, all people in the north and south of China, and of all ages, have the duty to defend the country."